Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. We have three special guests with us here today. We have Alex on guitar, Nicole on bass, Sydney on guitar and vocals from the band Dollskin. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to have you here. The other member of the band is Meghan on drums.
Yes.
Yeah, she's not feeling too well, so
sitting
this one out.
Had to let her rest.
Right. Well, everyone needs a rest, especially on tour, right?
Oh yeah.
And you guys are out through the beginning of November, pretty much.
Yes. Yep.
Pretty much solid.
We've been out for like 2 weeks now, and
With One Eye Doll.
yeah.
Got a couple more weeks left. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
We need to keep our drummer intact.
Yes, exactly. Got to rest up.
Oh yeah.
So what brings you to Sweetwater today?
Well, we're just stopping by. We play tomorrow at the Acoustic Lunch, and then we're also in town tonight to do a show at Neat Records in Fort Wayne. So we're just like coming through, thought we'd say hi, take a tour. It's really cool. We got to go in like
This place
cool
is so
rooms.
cool.
Very
My
cool.
favorite part is the
Thank you.
free arcade.
The arcade?
I
Not
really
the
like
slide?
the, I like the slide.
I haven't been on the slide yet.
That might be my favorite.
So the acoustic lunch is something we do here at Sweetwater. We have a stage. And are you guys doing acoustic versions of your songs, and are you playing electric?
I don't know.
We'll do
I
acoustic.
actually don't know.
I think we'll do acoustic.
We'll do acoustic.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll do acoustic.
Right. So I read a lot about you guys that says you're a new band, but you actually were formed back in 2013, right?
When I
Tell
was
us,
13 years old.
13 years old?
Yeah.
How did all that happen?
We met at this place called the School of Rock, which is like an after-school program.
We all took lessons there.
Yeah, we all
so.
took lessons into the performance program. Meghan actually got us together for her school's Battle of the Bands when she was a junior in high school. And we all got together, learned 3 songs, wrote one of those songs was an original, which is our first song we ever wrote, Family of Strangers. We still play it today. Pretty cool. And actually at that is where we met our manager, David Ellison, based in Megadeth. And that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We were a band by ourselves, like for a whole year, just like did local shows, and it was the year after that we did that same Battle of the Bands again, and David was there, and that was like after he saw us again that second time, he approached us about managing us, and after that he's really just like taken us to the next level of like we've been doing national touring. We did Warped Tour this summer. We've released a full-length album and like an EP kind of deal.
Doing
thing.
Shipwrecked for the second time.
Yeah. So.
Right. It's pretty amazing. You guys
yeah,
are like
it's so cool.
skyrocketed, right? Right.
Yeah.
So you did the first EP was like 2015, right? In Your Face, something like that?
Yeah.
I want to say yes.
None of us actually know the year, but that sounds
right.
about right.
A couple years ago.
2015 sounds right.
Yeah. I was interested that you re-released it, or actually you kind of released an augmented version of it, if you will, In Your Face again, with extra song on it. Why did you decide to do that?
I feel like since we, like, between those two, even though they're not, completely different, it's like we still grew a lot from the first release to the second release, and we wanted something that reflected us better.
Yeah. And
so
even through like remixing some songs and adding new ones, we thought it presented our growth really well. So we're like, why not package this up and make it a whole new thing? So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a difference. And then when you move to the new album that came out back in June, Manic Pixie Dream Girl, right? A lot of growth there, and quite a different sound. Now, had David come on board then as a producer for that album?
He actually stepped back on that album, I think. He wasn't really present in the studio as much.
He helped us more in the writing process, I feel like. Like, he came over a few times.
Structural kind of stuff.
And, like, just helped us, like, go through and review the songs and make sure they were, like, recording ready, basically, as he came over and was like, oh, like, what if you put this here, kind of, instead. Like, he was definitely really good in, like, the reviewing process, but...
He helped us with a lot of bass stuff.
Yeah.
He gave us a lot of freedom in production, though. He left it, up to us and our producer, Evan, I can't pronounce his last name ever.
Rodanish? We don't know.
But it was a really cool collab between us and Evan, and David kind of pulled back on the production element of it.
Yeah, no, he had a lot of faith in Evan, as did we.
Yeah,
and
for
Evan
sure.
did amazing.
Really well. So.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there was also, in addition to just growth as players and singers and in writing the songs, there's somewhat of a change of style from the early one, too, because the early one I would say is more of a punk kind of approach, a little raw.
Yeah.
And the new album, it has some pop elements, has some more production elements, some stutter edits in different places, and some effects and things that are going in there. What drove you in that direction?
Honestly, I think it was a lot of like influence from Evan. Like, he really helped us develop the sound of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl album, and it was a lot of his like ideas that we were like, well, we've never actually really thought of doing something like that, but like we actually like how it sounds. Like, there was a lot, like, he added in just like vocal like things that we were like,
production elements.
Like, we never really thought about using that, but we were like, it definitely like adds something to the sound, and we're not mad about it.
We've
like,
always said, this album, we sound like a real band. I think it definitely was the polished production, but also our edge behind it.
Right.
Yeah,
it's heavier. The guitars are big. It's a heavy, thick sounding.
That's what we wanted.
Thick sounding record.
Cool. Yeah, because we when we wrote this album, like, we wrote it just us in Alex's living room, and so it's like we didn't have like production elements during writing the songs.
We didn't write it around those
Exactly.
things.
So we wrote it around just the instruments that we had. So that's kind of where like the raw like musicianship of us comes in, and then all the production elements that got thrown in later. Like we were like, oh yeah, that's right, we can do that.
We're like, oh, that sounds cool. Like that's sick. I like it.
Awesome, perfect.
So we did.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
So tell us about the writing process. How do you come up with the songs? Where do the lyrics come from? And how does the arrangements come together?
Megan does almost all of the lyrics.
Okay.
We've definitely
Instrumentally- Go ahead.
we've just like changed like the process of how we've written like quite a few like since we've written. Like when we first started writing, it was like we came up with like guitar riffs first, and then it was like drums were added in, and then like I don't even know what we did then, and it just like happened. But for this last album, what we actually did was we started with a melody first and like lyrics, and then we wrote everything around a melody, which I think was really interesting. It was definitely something we'd never done before, and we really liked how the results were.
Yeah, we
of
kind of
that.
tried a few different approaches.
We definitely tried a bunch of different things.
It's always collaborative, though.
Yeah, very
Right.
collaborative.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're all sitting there together in a room, like everyone's throwing in things and everyone's helping each other with things. Like
Yeah.
it's very collaborative for sure.
Does someone, Megan writes the lyrics, but does someone come in with a riff or with a chord progression, or do you come up with those on the spot? as
It's
you're-
kind of on the spot. So
It's
I
a
mean, we
little
did kind of
both,
write around
though.
riffs sometimes. Like
Yeah.
we still wrote
Yeah.
around riffs for a couple songs, but
It's-
a lot of times like I'll come up with like a melody or like for Megan's lyrics or something, and then I'll kind of be at home and like, okay, maybe this note and this note. Like I'm not like the best guitar player, so I'm just like I have no idea if this
It was
even
more
works.
like
but
Megan would present lyrics, you would go home with a melody and like a chord progression almost, and then it would come back, and it would just be like, a handful of chords, a melody, and we're like, okay, now let's throw everything else on top of it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
But I don't know.
it's different for every song.
We don't have
Yeah.
we don't have a distinct process.
yeah.
I would say like the most distinct would be just like writing around a melody, and then everything else is just free game.
Yeah, like one time Megan actually wrote lyrics for a melody. Like
Yeah.
she like
She came up with the melody and then wrote the
Really
lyrics to fit in
interesting.
them.
yeah, which was interesting. That was kind of one of the most interesting ones, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm just messing around here.
Sure, sure.
Really
Do you write 20, 30 songs and pick the best ones, or did you have just enough for the album, or how about
Kind of
that?
just enough for the album.
Yeah.
I mean, we've scrapped
We've scrapped a lot of songs.
like from the beginning of Dollskin,
Yeah.
like, there was a lot of songs in the very beginning of Dollskin that like I don't even remember.
We still have on our phones, and we listen to that, and we're like, oh my god, do you remember when
It's
we
like
wrote this song?
we'd finish a song, and then it's like we would try so hard to push it to this next level of being like, oh, like that's it, that'll be on the album. It's like there's a lot of songs that just we couldn't get there.
We couldn't fix them. We
we
were just
can't
like,
do anything with
we give
this.
up with that song. Like it's lost. It's not happening.
We had used pieces and parts of scrap songs though, which ended up being in some of like our cooler songs.
Yeah.
But I would say we have a lot more of just like lost, just like pieces of songs that we
rather
have.
than full songs.
Yeah, we have a lot of like chords and like riffs and lyrics and melodies that we've had and we've like written around them, but then we were just like, not anymore.
That's fine though. That's
Yeah.
part of the process.
That's
And
what
like you
we
say,
really
some of
do.
those fragments come back
Exactly.
Yeah.
later when they show
Yeah.
up in the right place.
Yeah, yeah.
So you guys were thrust kind of right into the eye of the storm pretty early.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
met-
yeah.
You met David and toured with Metal Allegiance
Yeah.
and OTEP, and you mentioned Van Warps and Shiprocked, and so you're pretty immediately, as opposed to a lot of bands that
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
in the garage for years and then just kind of slowly make their way
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
You were pretty much thrown into the big time.
Yeah,
Tell us
yeah.
a little bit about that. What was that experience like?
We got a pretty awesome catapult. You know?
Yeah.
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 Me being the youngest, we started touring when I was 15. I wasn't even old enough to drive yet, and we were going across the country.
Yeah,
which
that was really crazy.
Really weird. It's really weird because I feel like I was almost like forced to grow up super fast.
All of us were. I mean,
Yeah, all of us
just
were.
growing
yeah.
up on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to toughen up and figure stuff out quick.
We've only been a band for like 4 years. I feel like what we've done in those 4 years has been like absolutely just so much. Like we have crammed so much into those 4 years.
But it's crazy because it's like we didn't know anything other than that.
Yeah.
Like David picked us up and threw us right in the water and just like go.
Yeah, we did
We
a
were
year.
like, okay.
Yeah, we
did
didn't
a
have
year
to
of
compare
local
that
stuff,
to,
so
though.
it's like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't have anything else to compare to. And now that we've been around for a lot longer, like we definitely see what it could have been and
we're
like
like,
how
oh my
lucky
God,
we are.
thank you,
and,
David.
Yeah.
Like we're
Right.
very grateful for the opportunities he's presented us because we know that like it could be just a lot harder than it is. Like we think things are like hard for us sometimes and then we're like, oh my God, like we could be, I don't know.
Yeah, being
just
as
like
young
in a
as
much
we
worse
are,
position.
Yeah, being as young as we are and being females, it's definitely like for us a lot more difficult to kind of get that catapult, you know. And so having David take this chance on us was like,
It means
the
everything to
opportunity
us.
all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's definitely been crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
What he always says is he helps us get in the foot our a foot in the
He
door.
opens the door and we go through it or something like that. I don't know.
He uses a lot of metaphors, so like
He opens the door for us and we do the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that he's always told us, and I guess I'm the only one that's ever actually understood it fully.
I get what he's saying, but it's like something about like the door, like we walk through and he doesn't.
and he rolls out a red carpet. I don't know.
He uses a lot of that.
He uses so many
Right.
metaphors.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
yeah.
being exposed to artists like Mike Portnoy and David, of course, and Alex Skolnick, the Metal Legions guys, and all the other bands, what did you take away from watching them on stage and just on tour?
I wish I had more, like the appreciation for Metal Legions, I wish I had that then that I do now.
Yeah.
It's like we knew of these people and their bands and they're like, oh, that's Alex Skolnick from Testament. We're like, whoa. But I'm like, I don't know a lot about Testament or Alex Skolnick. It's like now I think we've grown as musicians and as players.
Yeah, that
We
was
have
our first tour.
Yeah, so it's like we have such a different appreciation for that kind of stuff.
No.
But then looking back on it, I'm like, we got to play with those people and like they were there for us to talk to us and they wanted us to like learn from them and I think we did. Like,
Yeah,
on a
Troy
lot of-
Sanders from Mastodon literally gave Sydney like love
Relationship advice, like
it was wonderful. Like,
yeah, no, these people, like, I feel like they saw us, because we were young, and like it was our first tour, so they saw us as people that like could be mentors.
Sponges.
sponges.
Yeah,
We were sponges.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
It would be
Still
nice to
are
go back
sponges.
to that and like just be even spongier.
I
Like,
know.
just
Yeah.
really like
I wish we
absorb
were spongier.
so much
Yeah,
more
we didn't
from
take
them.
advantage of it as much as we could.
Because that was so
But I mean,
cool.
we were so like
New.
shell shocked. We're like, oh my god, everybody here is so famous, and like
And so
our
talented.
manager is just like in with them, and it's like, hey, these are my girls. We're like, we're the girls. Hi.
We're the girl. I always forget like David's like a real famous person.
It's crazy.
It's hard for us to remember that because sometimes he comes over for meetings in like khaki shorts and like sandals, and we're like, oh, that's right, you play on stage in front of like thousands of people. This is weird.
Yeah, and
With
then it was like
bands like Metal Allegiance, and we're like, this is
we were on tour with him.
How
And
do
we're
we
like,
even
oh look, there he is on stage,
put
like
this
being
into
amazing.
Right, right. He's been here several times. He's very casual, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, the casual.
very casual.
Yeah.
Right, right. So I was interested to read some of your influences, and one that comes up all the time is My Chemical Romance. What is it about that band that...
If Megan was here, she would be screaming. But
Yeah.
I know Megan and I like definitely take the most influence from My Chemical Romance. But I think it was like how they were just so like different from everything that they did. I mean, like everything else during that time.
They were
like,
so raw.
Yeah, like everything was very like emo during the time that they were really big. But like they were just so different. I feel like from the other bands. Like all of their songs like sound like My Chemical Romance, but at the same time are just like so different and so vast. Like especially throughout all their albums, they've written so many different styles, but it still all is like sounds like My Chemical Romance, which I think is just very like inspiring to be able to like play so many different types of music, but then just sound
Still
like
have
the
your
same
sound,
band.
yeah.
Right.
So that's really cool of them.
Yeah,
Right.
and they just were able to just stay super true to themselves their whole career. Like
Yeah, they're really
I
cool
didn't
people.
go through a My Chemical Romance phase, but ever since this band started, like I've gotten a really big appreciation for them.
I
Yeah, I
love
didn't
My
either, but
Chemical
I really
Romance.
appreciate like the artistic revolution.
Oh
they
yeah,
brought.
and the artistry behind their
yeah, like
music
the
too.
aesthetics, the
They had like full
theater
on
behind it.
concepts.
Yeah.
Behind everything they did
So
was just a
intelligent.
concept.
Right.
Yeah,
it was really
Intelligent.
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
just
Very
really
artistic.
admirable to like be able to keep up with that. Mm-hmm. It's like
Sure.
Yeah.
we wrote like a quarter of a concept album, and I'm like, this is blowing my mind. It's like that's all they did.
It's so cool. It's so
Right,
cool.
right. Another band that comes up frequently is Avenged Sevenfold.
That's Alex's like my
They're
cousin.
here recently. What
Yeah.
is it that draws you to them?
Oh my goodness. I just remember it was like in middle school. My mom put like 2 of their songs on my little iPod, and I've just been so in love with them since then. I mean, the construction of their songs and their like mainstream heaviness and the development from like this like crazy thrash metal that wasn't that great, and now they've just become like such an icon as like a metal rock band. It's like they're like the Metallica of this age. Disagree with me if you want, whatever. But I don't know. That's kind of how I see them. And Sinister Gates is another story. If he's been such an inspiration as a guitarist for me since day one. So I think Megan would agree. I
Yeah,
have
Megan
such a
loves them.
profound love for Avenged Sevenfold and everything they do ever.
Right.
Even Hail to the King, yes, whatever. But
Whatever.
yeah, they're huge.
Right.
They're huge.
Right, awesome. So being into bands like My Chemical Romance, Avenged Sevenfold, do you take things from them when you're writing songs? Do you look
think
for
so. Yeah.
opportunities?
We like to kind of take inspiration from everything.
Yeah.
We try not to stay one genre. We try like it's kind of evident in both of our albums.
But we listen to so much music. I think even if we wanted to stick to one genre, it'd be really difficult.
Yeah.
What we did for this last album is like when we were in like the writing process is we made this giant like playlist on Spotify of just a bunch of bands and songs we took inspiration from and all put it together.
Yeah, we all listened to that.
Like constantly. Like that was the only thing I listened to for like 3 months, and that was like that whole playlist, like every band on there, like we definitely took inspiration from like some part of their song, like for sure.
And it actually didn't suck listening to that playlist all the time because it was so like diverse.
Vast,
it was so diverse, and it was like really cool because like a lot of my favorite bands were on there, and then I got introduced to a lot of different bands listening to that playlist. So
well, it was literally a collection of like our favorite artists.
Yeah.
So it was like
that we were inspired by.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like we were forced to listen to each other's music.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of had to take inspiration from that.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the experience of being young females in the industry. I know you've talked in the past about kind of backhanded compliments that you receive and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
There's a whole lot of it, like that just like you don't even realize is like so relevant when you're a girl in the music industry. Like one of the things I think recently has been like we've seen all these bands post like end of tour photos, and you look in the photo and there's not like a single woman in the crew. And like
if there is girls, it's like they're not a part of like the tech, they're not a part of like the actual music. They might be the merch girl or something like that.
Yeah, which like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just been sad.
We're here to change that.
Yeah. We've just noticed a lot recently, like I don't know, just like recently in the past few months, we've just noticed like the lack of like women, and people are like, oh, there's like so many more women now, but it's like
there are,
but it's still like so small compared to it.
We notice it a lot because we're so used to being around, girls all the time, and like when we were on tour, even just with OTEP, like it was like there's another girl, there's at least one other one.
And then it was Lacey, and then we've done stuff with lots of other, like female-oriented bands.
Warped Tour had a lot of women this year.
Oh yeah, Warped Tour
really
was huge with like including a lot of females, which it was really like it felt really comfortable because like it's not like I can't be around only men, but it's like when you see other females working around you, you just feel like
it just feels normal.
It's empowering too. I mean, like there's a sense of normalcy and like comfort, but then you're like, oh.
Yeah, like the amount of shows we show up to and we're just like, oh, this is like only dudes playing, like there's only dudes working. Why is there no other women in this entire venue?
Yeah, and there has been a few venues that we go to that like we're used to a lot of like sound people or like people at the venue treating us differently because we're girls,
People always be like, oh, are you sure you can like plug in all your stuff? And I'm like,
yeah, they're like, oh, you sure you don't need help? And we're like, I do this every night.
I literally do this every night. Like, why?
That sounds weird because it's like, a lot of people do it genuinely to be helpful. Yeah. But it's like,
we don't see it happening to the guys.
You do see a contrast between, we'll recognize the way a sound guy or sound person, whatever, is, conversing with other bands and then with us. And it's like, they talk to us like we're like little kids. Yeah. And I guess like in comparison, we kind of are. But it's like we're up there trying to do something professionally, just like everybody else in the venue.
Yeah, we're there doing the same thing as everybody else, and it's like, I kind of have to take a step back and realize that I am young. Sometimes it's very obvious. Sometimes I don't seem like I'm older, and so it's like people do treat me differently because it's obvious that I'm young, and I am a kind of a I'm not very strong, I have to admit that like, yes, if I can get help with gear, I will ask for help with gear.
Sometimes when I can feel someone's like trying to condescendingly ask me, oh, do you need help with that? I'm like, this is so heavy, but I will carry it.
That's kind of what I mean by like the contrast. You can definitely tell people are like, it's just a
genuine versus
genuine versus like
oh,
I feel
you can't
obligated because you're a chick and like I feel like I have to kind of watch over you.
And then I'm like, no, I want no help. Even though inside I'm like, I really want help, but I won't do it.
I just think it's funny when people are like, oh, you need help carrying that? I'm like, do you need help carrying that?
Yeah.
So it's
roast them back.
Right.
Yeah. We also it's kind of been on another note is that it's kind of been upsetting how many like girls come up to us and they're like, I was actually really surprised by the fact that you guys were good.
We're like, really?
And I'm like, what do you mean?
Like why? You see another girl on stage and just like, why?
Yeah, no.
Why?
Yeah, there's been so many people. It's really upsetting because like so many people come up to me, like, because I'm at the merch table all the time, and like even after the show, the girls go do gear and stuff, and I'm staying at merch, and I sit there and people will come up to me and be like, yeah, I saw you guys get up on stage, and I was like, really surprised by like how impressed I was, and I was like, oh God,
that's the number one comment I feel like we get is people are just like, I was surprised you guys were good. We're like, thank you. You just see girls and you think they're not gonna be good. They're just not gonna be good.
Yeah, that's really, it's disheartening, but then it's like, okay, we're glad we kind of flipped your perspective, but it's kind of a bummer you had that perspective to begin with.
Right.
And it's like, it's definitely like, it's not just like people have also come at us and been like, oh, like, guys experience the same exact thing. Like, people see them get on stage and think, oh, they're not going to be good. But the thing that's different is, like, people aren't saying guys get on stage and being like, oh, they're not going to be good because they're guys. It's going to be like, oh, they're not going to be good because, I don't know, just
whatever,
like something else. Like, they look like blah, blah, blah. But it's not because, like, oh, they're a bunch of dudes. Like, they're not going to be good. People just automatically assume because we're a group of all girls, like, we're I don't know what they expect. But they obviously don't expect we're going to be good.
Yeah, and one of the things that doesn't happen very often, but is very, very apparent very frequently, is everyone hits on us all the time.
It's just gross.
Yeah, you got that one guy that was like, how about you give me a poster for $5 and your number?
And I'm like, I don't think that's how that works.
What if you just paid full price because we're broke and we want to eat food? Like,
no one actually wants to talk to you.
Yeah, and it's like, even if I was single, even if I was of, you know, legal age, you know, it's like, still no. You know, no matter what age or no matter, like, if the person is available or not, unless they're also reciprocating these interests or these attractions, you don't just, like, assume that they want your number or want to give you their number, you know, like, you know, take the chance, but if they shut you down,
don't keep going. They keep going. That's the biggest
that's
thing.
The thing.
Like,
people just keep going, and we're like, what, are you still here?
Like, sometimes it's genuine, sometimes I appreciate it, you know, because it's like you have an interest in me, and it's like, I'm not going to say yes.
The flattery goes away very quickly, though.
Yeah, the flattery goes away very quickly when they don't give up or when it's very obviously, strictly, sexual.
And it's also people, I feel like, also will sometimes flatter us because they think we're going to give them something in return. They, like, flatter us a bunch, then they're like, oh, can I get your number? And it's like, you thought just because you were complimenting me, like, I was going to give you your number. Like, thank you for appreciating what I'm doing, but, like, that doesn't mean I owe you anything, like, at all. I'm sorry,
One of my favorite things was one time this guy came over and talked my ear off about how much he appreciated our music, you know, and then he just left. And I was like, thank you for just talking to me.
That's wonderful. That's all I've ever wanted.
Because, like, he just talked to me about my music and about things that he appreciated, and then he showed me some of his art and stuff, and then he didn't ask anything from me. And I was like, thank you for, like,
it's refreshing,
respecting and appreciating me as a person rather than just kind of looking at me as a thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Sure. Yeah. So how does that change? I mean, that kind of goes back to the Runaways and all-girl groups. And now there are, of course, in heavy music, there's some female lead singers and things, but they tend to be lead singers, not so much band, you know, the musicians in the band. How does that change?
It
More
starts,
girls, I
it
guess.
starts with people, like, it starts with, you know, kind of the men in the music industry standing up for the women, you know. 'Cause it's like, the more men that are aware of talented female musicians and respecting women, like, the more that becomes a thing, is the more women will be invited to be a part of these bands and to, like, be respected on stage and stuff. Because it's like, you know, girls can try to get in bands all they want, but as long as the guys don't want them in the bands, they won't be able to get anywhere, you know?
One of the biggest things Otep always said was, she was like, I like to always take out female acts because no one else really gives them a chance usually. That's why she brought us out. It wasn't like, I mean, she was just like, I want to give these girls a chance because, like, most likely, like, no guys are going to bring them out just because, I don't know. Like, guys don't bring out girl bands sometimes.
I think it also comes down to kind of a juxtaposed point of, like, ignoring, like, the stereotype. I don't know if stereotype is the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Almost ignoring the fact that, like, there's a divide.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we don't want to acknowledge that more than anybody else does. We don't want to give it power. We're here to, you know, to close any sort of gap. So it's almost a weird process of ignoring it.
Yeah, I read
like
this
constructively ignoring it. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was this one. It was like the only way for there to stop being a divide between girls in bands versus guys in bands is for, like, guys to stop acknowledging that it's a girl in a band versus a guy in a band. Like, everyone just needs to stop being like, oh, she's a great girl musician. It just needs to be like, she's a good musician.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, ignore the gender of all of it. Like, that has no impact on anything.
Yeah. We like to use it to empower ourselves, but at the same time, we're just like, just call us musicians.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the fact that we are an all-girl band inspires other young female musicians.
And we like to use that to our advantage.
Exactly. And so it's like, you know, as much as I would like to step away from calling ourselves an all-girl band, it's like, when
it's empowering.
Other girls see that, it's like, they can do that, I can do that too, you know?
Yeah, like, we take pride in it. Like, it's just basically like we take pride in being an all-girl band, but at the end of the day, we don't want to be referred to an all-girl band. Like, it's confusing. Like, it's weird because it's like, we're calling ourselves an all-girl band, but we're like, we don't want to be identified as an all-girl band.
We're not cool because we're an all-girl band. We're cool because we're a band and we make music.
And then a bonus.
And then a bonus.
We're all girls.
We're all girls. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
We don't really know.
We don't know.
Well, it's great you're out there
Yeah.
being an inspiration and showing females who want to get into the industry that it can be done.
that's
and
what we
have
wanted.
a
Yeah.
life.
Oh yeah. And
Exactly.
Warped
That's
Tour
wonderful.
is a huge example of how
Oh,
it's
yeah.
possible. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, girls don't get into the business side or the other side of music because it's too much work or whatever. But it's like
There were so many girl roadies.
so many
There
girl
were
roadies, so many like just females
stage managers,
doing
tour
everything that you
managers,
would usually
everything.
see a guy doing, and it's like they just did it. You know, it's not like, oh my God, you're a female stage manager. Like, good job. You know, it's
It
just
was
like they
just
just did
like-
it.
yeah.
You know, they got yelled at too, just the same amount as the guys. You know,
Right.
It's
Yeah,
cool that
it's
we're
cool.
just excited to be involved in the progression.
Because there's
of the
definitely, I
music
feel
industry.
like there's like a not like a revolution, but there's definitely like a big step up. I feel like in the past year at least, where like girls have been on tour a lot more. And I know like All Time Low recently, like for an example, just got called out because they did one of like the tour end photos. It was literally all guys, and they were like, "Gosh, I wish there were more women." And everyone was like,
You have the
because
power
you
to do
didn't
that."
hire women. And then on their next tour, they have an all-girl band, which is really cool to see. Like, okay, at least they did something about it.
Right.
Like they were like. People saw that they were not bringing women on tour, and then they changed that, and it was like, yay, they're
Yeah.
bringing women on tour.
they actually did.
That's all we
something.
want.
Right. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you're on tour for the next 3-4 weeks. What's next after that? Are you going back into the studio?
Ooh, we're gonna
not
be
quite
writing.
the
Not into
studio.
the studio.
We're going to my living room.
Yeah, Alex's living room.
Like we do really want to write over November, December.
Yeah.
And most of January, but we do have plans at the end of January around Shiprocked. But yeah, no, we really are. We've already been talking about concepts and already kind of throwing out ideas for the next album.
We have
so
like colors that we're being inspired by, like
Right.
specifically.
Yeah.
I mean,
She likes colors.
I'm not gonna say what the color is, but
Anyway.
like
Yeah.
we've got color inspiration.
We have
going
some
on.
indistinct touring plans for 2018,
Yeah.
but writing is definitely a priority.
Yeah. Right now we've got Shiprocked
Yeah.
in January, and then our 2018's like we have like hopeful plans, but it's pretty open of like.
And nothing is solidified as of yet.
Not yet.
Right. Still a ways off, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's great. Congratulations on all your success.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
you being here. We're looking forward to the show tomorrow. And
Yeah.
tonight
Yeah,
as well.
excited.
Good
Thank you.
stuff. Alex,
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much.
Nicole,
Thank you so much.
reach over, Sydney.
Awesome.
Great to have you guys here. We appreciate it.
very
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you so much.
That's fun.
And thank you for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.